Welcome back to another special episode of Wrist Check Podcast. The gang is back together again. Allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Perry.
And I'm Rashawn.
And we make the dynamic WCP duo. We have our very, very special guest on the couch.
Very, very special.
Georgia Benjamin.
Hi. So
Welcome.
Thank you.
So glad to finally have you.
Thank you so much.
Hailing all the way from London town and LA.
True.
Yeah.
Very
so
far afield.
we are not only bi-coastal, but intercontinental.
Yes.
Right, with it. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to get into your story, your background, and your love of watches. You have a really interesting background, and I can't wait to get into your story. But as is tradition, we must start with our honorary wrist check.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
what do you have on the wrist, sir?
So this is a very, 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 very special timepiece.
Okay.
This one hits me, right here in the heart. It was a gift from our good friends, Eric Wynn and Charlie.
Shout out to Charlie Dunn.
So these gentlemen came out with a Seiko 5 in collaboration with Rowan Blazers.
Yes.
They did a cool run of like some interesting dials, and I have to say the purple was the best. I laughed and I joked and I called it the friends and family color dial. So it's the F&F dial. I mean, reads really clean. It's like has all the nods that you want it to have. You can put it on a bracelet. You can put it on a strap. We'll get there. But, when I got this watch, I was very, very appreciative of it. But sadly, we parted from it. We did like a little mini shoot. Shout out to Thomas. We sent it all the way to the West Coast. So I had to say bye-bye. And when it came back, I was like, I'm not taking this thing off.
That's dope, man. I love that watch. We'll save our guest of honor for last. I think this is the first time this has ever happened on the show, but I too am wearing the same watch.
First time.
And we didn't plan this.
We did not.
So it's funny. But I too am wearing the purple dial Seiko Sports 5 Rowing Blazers collab. Mine's I'm wearing on a strap. I took the bracelet off.
Yes.
What I love about this piece is there's a couple of different nods. So Rowing Blazers is a clothing brand. It's a New York-based clothing brand that's kind of like a blend between like streetwear and like prep.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric happens to be a part owner in the brand, and he handles a lot of the watch collaborations. Seiko is a brand they've done a number of collaborations with. I think this might be the third collab piece that they've done.
Yeah.
And if you're familiar with the brand, they have like that candy stripe thing that they do. They use that for the seconds hand. It also has the kanji date wheel, which I love.
So
you can
fun.
go. It's like I don't speak a lick of Japanese, but
it just looks cool.
It looks cool.
Extra cool points.
What I love about this watch, it always reminds me of that Biggie Smalls lyric: T-bone steak, cheese, eggs, and Welch's grape.
Yes.
And so I always get like it makes me smile. I love it. We love Eric and Charlie, really, really great friends of the pod, have helped us get into many of a watch, maybe to our detriment sometimes.
Yes.
But it's one of those pieces where you have a fond memory attached to it, and I always think of them. And so it's nice to be part of that club. Georgia, you got something special on the wrist, something gold.
I do, but I also have the same watch as you guys.
Yeah.
With a pink dial.
The pink dial, that's tight.
Pink dial, which is very fun. But I bought mine at the minute that it dropped. I had to buy it immediately, and it came in like 3 days, and I was so excited.
Yes.
And I'm sad I'm not wearing it. So I'm sorry I'm not matching. We should have planned better. But
Yeah, next time we'll plan better.
I am wearing a
But you still got something good. What is
I
this?
know. This is a solid hunk of gold. It's a Rolex Cellini 4350. And to me, it's just the perfect Cellini. Like the way the bracelet tapers is just beautiful. And the hidden clasp at the back. It's just, and the Roman numerals on the bezel. It's just such a special piece.
Yeah.
I adore it.
It is great. That's like 70s.
Yep. Late
Yeah.
70s.
Those
in
late
pristine condition.
70s integrated bracelet Cellinis are fire.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm so glad that they've made a comeback.
Yes.
Additionally, you can find there's quite a few of them that are in really good condition.
Yep.
So this was a watch that was like people who owned it did it. It was like an occasion watch,
Yes.
right? But I love that you kind of flip it on its head and you've got like this high-low streetwear, high fashion, luxury thing going on, giving new life to it. This is dope.
Yeah.
And check out the nails. Fire.
Yeah.
They are ridiculous. They
Yeah.
are ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're so fun to play with too because they're
Yes.
actual bubbles. So they make me very happy.
The
They're
No,
ridiculous.
it's a lot of fun.
accessories, whole lot of gold.
A
I
whole
love
lot of
gold.
gold.
Gold is fun. I wish I didn't love it as much as I do, but it is really fun. But no, this was the Cellini line was like Rolex's first foray into dress watches.
Yeah.
So it was the first time where the brand really wanted you to wear an alternative watch to your tool watch. And I just think what this whole collection stands for is just so nice and so exciting. And
It's very luxe.
it's so luxe. But this compared to the Midas,
Yeah.
I feel like Cellini is just under it, but it's gonna soar at some point. Like right now, everyone is so obsessed with the Midas. Everyone's so excited about these different pieces, but I'm just
Yeah.
waiting for Cellini to then follow the same suit and become
It's
impossible
one of
to
those
get.
pieces too, where it's like, even the Midas and the Cellini, when you're venturing off into like vintage timepieces and you come across this, it's so unlike anything that you know of Rolex. It's like,
Yeah.
it kind of just draws you in.
100%.
I know,
Yeah.
which is so fun.
This episode of WCP is sponsored by Bezel, a trusted marketplace for buying and selling watches. With over 18,000 and counting watches listed from both private sellers and professional dealers, you have your pick of the litter from brands like Rolex, AP, Patek, and more. Bezel is one of the highest rated marketplaces for watches. Inside the Bezel app, you can make offers on watches, buy them outright, bid at auction, all with confidence knowing each timepiece is authenticated by an in-house team of experts. For more information, visit getbezel.com or search Bezel in the App Store and download the app today. Speaking of fun, you've become, in recent time, quite the persona in the watch world,
Oh, thank you.
right? And when I think about your Instagram page, when I think about the photos that you take and your approach to watches, the word fun springs out. You know, and I love the energy that you bring. We ran into you at a couple of events, and it's the same energy. And I love that. You have a really interesting background. You're a designer. And you do everything from product design, user interface, experience, etc. How'd you get mixed in with the nerds?
Honestly, I know. I kind of wish I never dabbled because now I can't go back and I'm
Yeah,
part of the
right?
tribe.
Slippery
but
slope.
Yeah, it's dangerous. But watches to me are just so exciting. And they're that perfect fusion of like my nerdy design self because there's a lot of like mathematical overlap with product design and UX and then the aesthetics. So watches are honestly that like harmonious balance between the two. So to me, it's kind of a perfect movement, but I got into it really for my 30th birthday. I wanted to buy myself a gold Rolex. I was like, you know what, Georgia, you've worked really hard this year. Let's buy yourself a gold Rolex.
So wait, prior to this,
I had one watch before this.
what watch was that?
Cartier Santos.
Okay.
Wow.
I bought it maybe 8 years ago.
Okay.
I got it for dirt cheap and I could hardly afford it.
Okay.
But I wanted it so badly because everyone I saw in this Cartier Santos they had epitomized luxury or success or poise. And I was like, I want to be like these people. I want to have that same air and that same sort of just honestly poise as the
Right.
people wearing the Cartier Santos. So I
Yes.
bought it and I thought I was done. I wore it.
I thought I
every
was
day.
done.
I thought
It's
it
the
was
story
done.
of my life.
It's-
Yes.
But I was done for about 7 years, maybe. I
Okay,
was
that's
done for
pretty
a
good.
while, maybe 6 years. I was done for a while.
Yes.
And then I turned 30 during COVID. I was working a ton because you couldn't really travel as much. And I said to myself, gold Rolex is what we're going to buy today, which is ridiculous. But it took me a year and a half of learning and research and like deep diving and understanding movements and design and case size and really what I wanted within my price range. And that year and a half of learning made me fall in love with watches.
Wow.
So the studious part that you went through was that post the Day acquisition, or
That was what led to the acquisition of the Date.
very, very interesting.
Yes.
In your search for something special for your 30th, you actually dove in and educated yourself about watches. That's so fascinating because I feel like for the vast majority of us, Rolex is like the first thing we pop off on. It's like,
Yes.
I got money, let's go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you learn about everything. But you actually took a different approach, which kind of makes sense given your background in design, right? Like this is a very intentional choice that you're trying to make. You're trying to celebrate something momentous. We had just gone through COVID, and obviously you want to feel good, and you're just joining the 30 Club.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you settle on the gold Day. What was it about that timepiece when you saw it, you were like, this is the direction I'm going?
To me, it's the most classic Rolex you can get. Like the President Rolex is just the top tier. Like the amount of people that's worn it, the perfect size, the fact that it's still in their collection today, it's just a watch to me that kind of stands a test of time,
Yeah.
more so than some of the other pieces in the Rolex sort of repertoire.
Yeah.
But I remember finding it. I remember thinking I wanted it in a champagne dial and then worrying it that it's like a little basic. Maybe I don't want something that's run of the mill. Like I never like anything that's, I want it because everyone else has it. It's not really my MO. But I saw it in a black dial with diamond markers.
Okay.
And I was like, this is it.
And so this was a vintage piece.
Definitely vintage.
Okay.
So the fact that I wanted birth year because it was a
Okay.
big birthday celebration, but it wasn't a must-have. It was more, what do the watches look like I'm 91? Like, what do the watches look like from 91? What sort of minute track do they have? What sort of design differences do they have for earlier ones or newer ones? And it was the 91 was just the perfect marker style, everything I wanted in a watch, and just turns out to be the same age as me. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Something that you know, as you're explaining your early journey in, you know, collecting watches and even finding your homework. Shout out to Ben's Watches. We had him on earlier, and we were speaking about like how unconventional you're finding new people, you know, join this hobby. And now with the age of social media, right, we're expressing ourselves like publicly, outwardly to the world. And I find it to be very cool in how you express yourself. You know, we kick it all the time. We see each other at events, and like you're always eccentric and out there and, you know, dripped in gold. My question to you is, how has it been for you now entering this new space in the world of watches?
It's a very good question, and it's been very interesting. Normally, and I don't want to make it a sexist thing, I'll go to a watch event and most of the time I'm not known, which is fine. And I won't be validated by the men there until they realize, oh, you know what you're talking about. I get this at most events where well, not that I expect people to have a clue who I am, but more so I'll turn up and they're like, oh, like, you know what you're talking about. And I'm a little bit insulted, but at the same time, I'm like, well, how are you meant to know that I know what I'm talking about? Like, I actually do. And I'm so glad that we can now connect and bond over this. So I think it's interesting. I think I'm very lucky to have been well received. I think your point earlier about my energy, that I try and make it as fun as possible because it's a wonderful but silly hobby.
And we have enough people in this hobby and industry to be serious.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we could have some brevity. Like, can we keep it lighthearted for once?
Yes.
And, you know, to your point, no, you do make it that way. The watch world can still be a bit of a boys' club, but I think, you know, having people such as yourself and some of the other women in watches that we know really put their image and make their presence felt is what is allowing this hobby and this world, this universe that we're creating to grow and flourish in such a meaningful way. And friendships and relationships and business relationships are being developed as a result of that. What I want to ask you next is, okay, you get your Cartier, 7-8 years, celebrate your 30th, you get the date. You got 2 watches. You have more than 2 watches now.
Yeah.
Whole lot of watches.
So at what point or how soon after getting the date were you like, I need another watch? Holy shit, I'm a collector.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. It's the hunt for me is what I get so excited about.
It really draws you in.
It does. And it's the learning. I am such a curious person. So the fact that I see something that I've never seen before, I'll just go on a deep dive and learn about it and then decide, do I need it? Probably yes, but no. But so it's when I discover something that I've never seen before, I will then learn more and more about it. And I have about 30 watches now.
30. So this is accelerated quickly.
Yeah, I'm an addict. Hi. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible.
That's funny. Listen, so what's funny is, just to go off tangent a little bit, we know a couple that has you beat. So we were just in DC and you'll get a kick out of this. It's hilarious. And so Rashawn was talking to this couple. I saw them. I was like, you know, making my rounds. I was engaging, talking to people, whatever. The guy walks past me and I look at his wrist and I'm like, 6007G Patek Philippe Calatrava. New watch, deep cut.
Yes.
So I'm like, what's up with you in this watch? And I
Yeah.
talk to him. As I'm speaking with him, I see he has another watch on the other wrist.
Double wristing.
He's double wristing. He's wearing a F. Pigeon Chronomat Souverain, rose gold, white dial, green strap.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
who are you?
Yeah, who are
Then
you?
his wife comes over and she's like, yeah, we're a couple. We collect watches. And she's double wristing too.
Yeah.
She's wearing a Cartier Santos with like
The green dial.
it was like a malachite or a jade dial.
With the
something.
jade numerals?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
On one wrist.
It's part of their
And
privé,
then
yeah.
she's wearing a Moser flywheel
Yes.
on the other, another deep cut.
Yeah.
And
Moser
so I'm
flywheel is
like,
crazy.
who are you guys and what's going on? And she's like, well, we have an Instagram page called Couple of Watches.
Okay. I need
Yes.
to follow
We're
them
a couple that
immediately.
collects
Yeah.
watches. And I'm like, you guys are really into it because you got like some heavy hitters
Yeah.
and some deep cuts. I was like, how long have you guys been collecting? 8 months.
Stop.
8 months and over 75 watches.
Bloody hell. Yeah, they got me beat. They've got me beat. That's insane. That buying at that pace, like I applaud
But
them.
this is
and I
the
need to
kind
be
of
their
thing
friends,
with
but
this
that's-
hobby. And, similar to you, you could see not only the excitement, but the love, the appreciation, not only for the hobby, but for the community.
Yeah.
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 And listen, if you're in a position to get going like that,
Yes.
Amazing.
when it's got you, it's got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
for
what I'm
sure.
saying?
You're hooked.
So now you've got 30 watches. Okay. What are the other brands that you've ventured off into? You got your Cartier, Rolex covered. These are classics, right? Santos, Day-Date,
Piaget,
Piaget. Okay.
AP, I adore. But I'm mostly in the vintage.
I love
The
that.
Vintage is just
What is it for you about vintage that resonates?
the story.
Okay.
And to me, vintage is so romantic because for the most part, you don't have a clue what this watch has done before it's come into your life. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's got this whole story that's completely unknown. And that mystery to me is romantic. And then the watch comes into your life and it's your turn to sort of write that next chapter.
I love that.
To me, that's just like
Yeah.
poetry and magical and like, so romantic.
It,
So-
it is romantic in that way. It's kind of like a passing of the torch, but you almost don't know. You don't always know who
Yeah.
passed
Who
it to you.
passed it to
I know.
you? Yeah.
which is amazing.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. So I know Cartier is a brand that makes you very, very excited. You do a lot of content with them. You attend a lot of events. And of course, Cartier was the first luxury timepiece that you purchased. What is it about Cartier that spikes your interest so much?
It's the design history. I'm a sucker for the design history of Cartier. I read their book about the Cartier family recently, and I learned so much more about the history and how all the different design was influenced by different moments in time and different fluctuations in the market, and like what was going on with like the first flight with like Albert Santos Dumont. That was the first Santos that was designed for him in like 1906,
Yep.
and which was like so cool. And then the Panther was designed for, I think her name is Jean Rousseau or something like that. We'll find
Yes.
that's the strap brand, but Jean something or other. We'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a close and like intimate friend of Louis Cartier, and her nickname was Panther. So which is like epic, but like a little scandalous, but wonderful. I'm like, because Cartier describes it as a close and intimate friend of the brand, which he was a married man. It's fine. But she went on to become the creative director for high jewelry at Cartier and worked for them for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And the Panther watch was designed after her, which is just amazing that it's still so prominent in their collection today. But I think the fact that Cartier do such a fantastic job of recreating designs from historic pieces into today, I don't think a lot of brands do a very good job of that.
I agree with that 100%. I think they're one of the few brands that can go back through their catalog and it's always like they can recreate an icon, you know, and breathe new life into it. I mean, we've seen them do it time and time again. I also think, to your point, their history is kind of incredible. When you look at the Santos Dumont, which I own one, I love it. It's a fantastic watch. And then you look through the history and you're like, wow, this is a sports watch.
Yeah.
This is a pilot's watch.
It's amazing.
watch.
I know.
It's like their approach to design historically is so unconventional.
Yes.
But at the same time, they set standards that other brands then follow, right? They set this benchmark that's like, wow, okay, we need to think about design in different terms and how people use watches and what they're made for. But also like, you know, it can have its own spirit. You know, you look at the Santos, it's an amazing dress watch. You look at the history, it's like, it's a pilot's watch. There's duality there in that spirit. I want to ask 30 watches, all these things. It's different. There's a difference between appreciating watches, becoming a watch collector, and then to put yourself out there and start sharing. What was it that prompted you to actually put yourself out there as someone in the community to share with people, but also give your own perspective on watch collecting? And
I think it was because I didn't find that many other women in the space. And it's something I'm extremely passionate about. I share on Instagram anyway about things. And then I think it was a year and a half ago, I joined a watch club in LA. And I was the only girl that joined, that was in this watch club. And it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It happens a lot. And I was like, I want to document this journey. Like I went to a swap meet as my first event with them, and I met so many interesting dealers, and I saw so many watches, and I started just posting a little bit about it without any sort of, like, I still do it for fun. Like I still have a job, but which pays for my watches. But at the same time, it's so fun to be able to share my opinion, my experiences, and I'm so lucky to get to see and try on some of the rarest and most incredible pieces. And I feel like, pinch me every single time I get to do this because I'm so lucky for it. But I feel that if I share it from a fun and sort of lighthearted manner, more people will want to get involved and start collecting.
And have you noticed that like the public or maybe your following has responded to that?
So nicely.
Yeah.
I get 99% friendly DMs.
That's awesome.
Which is like 1%.
That's pretty good.
Like that is really good. Everyone is so nice on Instagram. Everyone is so friendly. A lot of people ask they send me screenshots. They're like, this was my grandmother's watch. Can you tell me about the history of it?
Wow.
And I get those DMs make me so happy. And sure, I'm not an expert by any means, but like I'll do my best to go and research and see what I can do because I know the right places to do the research.
Right.
So I have had such a lovely warm welcome from watch people and non-watch people too. So it's been really nice.
That's awesome.
Yo, you know Bezel just launched auctions?
Really?
Yeah, they did. You could bid on watches inside the app. They give you notifications on auction drops, and it's still authenticated. Oh, shoot, I won.
Yo, what you win?
Man, don't worry about me, man. Go download the app. Go visit getbezel.com.
Oh, come on, man.
In life, there are choices and options. Choices set the tone. Options change the mood. And while you aren't able to drive 2 cars, you can, however, travel with 2 watches. Introducing the Shuttle, a traveling watch case in collaboration with WCP and Wolf. Godspeed.
Available at wristcheckpod.com.
You brought some watches with you. I want to get into some of these options that you brought with you and sort of talk about, I guess maybe you can educate us on some of these and what you know, and then what attracted you to these pieces.
Of course.
So I think first, I'm going to go for the YSL.
Yeah, I was going to say.
This is pretty tight. I have a thing for shaped watches. I think shaped watches are in. I think they're going to stay in for a while. I'm not familiar with Yves Saint Laurent's timepieces, but I did see you post this online. I was like, man, I hope she brings this because I want to know more about this. So what's the deal with this timepiece?
So this is a fun, honestly, a little fashion watch. And a lot of people call it like my crash because it's just the most
It has that like spirit to it.
And it's just a perfectly designed piece with the way that the crown is into the curve of the bottom of the heart. But it was from the 90s. It's just a little quartz watch that I managed to find new old stock. And it sits so nicely on the wrist. It's such a fun piece. What I find interesting about it is the way that the lugs set on the back.
Oh, wow.
Because they're concealed and the strap is actually cut at an angle. I have another strap to show
And
you.
is that the original strap?
Original strap, which has a little YSL printed on the back.
Wow.
And it's just a really, really fun piece. And this is one that gets stopped with or wearing so many times. Like jewelry lovers wear it, watch lovers wear it, because it's just an interesting piece. But it's inexpensive, under $1,000, and just a really fun little cute nod to watch design.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Some that that I wanted to touch on when we were just talking about your experience in this space now, right? And working with brands and what you love about Cartier, and right, how they're able to look back into their past and like build a new future. When we're looking at 90s pieces like this, when you talk about YSL watches, Gucci watches, and other fashion houses, when they made watches, they made them great.
Yeah.
And now you see them trying to make watches now and they're not so great. I'm very curious your take on what you're seeing in the industry in terms of, trying to dig into the archives or who you find outside of Cartier that's actually doing it right by their history.
I think Boucheron is doing a good
I
job
agree with that.
their reflect.
Yeah.
It's just stunning. And they're able to their modern pieces are still such a fantastic nod to their historic pieces. But I don't think there's that many brands that do as good of a job as Cartier does.
Yeah.
And I think Longines try with some of their pieces. They have such an incredible history and incredible knowledge. And I have a couple pieces from them, not with me today, because I love the brand and I love the history. But they are unable to replicate some of the old movements, some of the old styles that they had, because they said the machinery either doesn't exist or it's just too difficult to replicate. And that, to me, that's just a bit of a shame. But I understand that they're they're complicated movements, different to Cartier, because a lot of them are quartz pieces. So it's easier just to remake. But Bulliver do a good job of it. And
Yes, they do.
Shout out to our friend TJ. He's
Yeah, shout out
wonderful,
to TJ.
but
Yes.
They do a good job of replicating some of their beautiful pieces from the 60s in modern ways for really affordable price points. So I think they do a good job of it. Yeah.
And they have a history of that. I think especially when you look back like through their archives, like it's some rich designs in there. You talk about like the old school, like some of those cocktail watches.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
The Dior collaboration.
Yeah, I
Which went
came
on for, like,
across
60s
that
and
recently.
70s.
I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's
That's
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny too, like talking about like fashion watches. It feels like fashion watch today is kind of like a 4-letter word. It feels like that. But then when you look at, to your point, like what was going on like in the 90s and the 80s, there's a lot of like cutting edge stuff. Even back in the 70s, you look at like the Pierre Cardin stuff, like fire stuff,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And I think, it seems like there's such watches have exploded that even the fashion houses feel like they have to follow a trend rather than establish their own, which I think is a shame.
Yeah.
I wish we would see more originality there.
Yeah.
So I think fashion watches have a place and I think they're fantastic. But I think there should be a better differentiation by the brands that design the fashion watches to not say we're trying to replicate a Rolex or we're trying to replicate this high-end watch with a complicated movement on the inside. Like Swarovski do a really good job of that. They have this piece that came out a few months ago, which has got chunky jewels on it. Honestly, it needs to go with my nails so badly. I need one of these watches. They're like less than $500, but they are so fun and they've got huge Swarovski crystals throughout the whole thing. But they don't try and pretend that they're a high movement, incredible piece. They're like, we're a fashion watch. This is a jewelry piece and we want to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think there are some fashion brands who could just follow that line and follow that train and say, these are fun pieces. Like, yes, they work and they're fantastic watches and they're beautifully designed, but we're not trying to play in the same space as these Richemont Group watch brands. So I think that's the disparity.
Yeah.
But there's such a place for them. And out of my 30 watches, they are not all fine timepieces. There's a lot of fun vintage swatches.
Oh, we know. Yeah. There's some good stuff in there.
I can't be, it's not 30 Rolexes,
Well,
that's
and I
for
think
sure,
that's
but-
what kind of makes you like a well-rounded collector. And again, like we talk about this all the time. This is a hobby. Like you can have fun with it. If you want to play that game and you want to compete with some of the, greatest collectors of the world and like put this collection together and work with auction houses, fantastic. But I think for the vast majority of us, we're really just trying to have a good time and express ourselves through these different timepieces.
Yeah.
You've got another piece here, which is really cool. Let's pull this up.
This little Piaget dancer.
This is fire.
The links on this are epic.
Yeah, the links are crazy. Now, tiny watches are in.
Yes.
I think they've been in. I would rock this. I would totally rock this. I
have
know
some
our
extra
friend
links.
Elias would
I
be.
got
I
some
was
extra
gonna say
links.
that's a
he
Elias
loves this.
watch.
He
Yeah.
loves this.
Of course he does.
Yeah, he's seen this.
This is really nice.
With onyx style and diamond. Like
I
it's
love
just
with some of
fun.
those older watches too. They just completely remove the crown.
I know. Just having the push pin on the back, which
Crazy.
is just so, and some modern Cartier pieces have that too.
Yeah.
Where instead of having even a hidden crown, they have this push pin on the back, which
That's
is
so cool.
it's near impossible to set. It's so difficult, but if you figure it out, you just have to push and hold at different tempos.
Yes.
But it works. But I don't necessarily use it to tell the time.
And then even just the idea of like, no, we're gonna make a gold quartz watch.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a flex. It's a flex.
How did this fall into your collection?
So this I got for an absolute steal. And I saw it listed on a site that it was listed for maybe a third of what it should be sold for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I need it. And just purely because maybe it's something I want to flip. Maybe it's just something that I want to have in my collection. And I bought it and I've clearly haven't parted with it, but it's so special. I often wear it stacked with my Piaget polo
Nice.
as like a double, like solid Piaget.
When we
arm.
met, you were doing
Yeah,
that. You were
yeah,
stacking
exactly.
watches.
It's just such a good little combo. Because to me, this is like a bracelet.
It is,
And
yes.
the high gloss and little slight subtle diamonds. To me, this is a bracelet. So I would gladly wear this double wristing with another watch.
Yeah.
But it's a fun piece. And I love collecting vintage ads that match the watches that I have.
Okay.
So I have a late 80s, I think it's late 80s or maybe early 80s dancer ad hanging up in my bathroom with exactly the same watch with diamond markers. And it's just a very fun little piece.
Speaking of that, you curated an event I saw maybe a month or so ago in LA. And you had a friend of ours there. Trevor was there.
Yes.
And I think you guys collabed with Nick
Yes.
from Chicago, Ad Patina.
Exactly.
How did that come about? That looked
Oh,
like
that
a lot
was
of fun.
So fun.
Yeah.
So I did it as I hosted a big watch dinner for like a GB supper series, which was very fun. And I always cap them at like 20 people because having more, like it's still an intimate enough of a group. But what I try and do at these sort of dinners is, can we have a brand represent or someone like Nick from Ad Patina represent and come and either sell their wares or at least like tell us about his collecting journey.
Yeah.
And it was such a fun dinner. It was at this lovely restaurant, the Italian restaurant in LA. And we had the whole sort of private room. I wanted to make sure the collectors like felt very safe.
Sure.
And something that I did for everyone who attended, I asked them to tell me what their favorite vintage watch was. So they sent them to me in advance and I had postcards made of everyone's vintage watch with like an ad of it.
That's cool.
That I found and sourced, and I got Nick to help with finding some of these items. And so everyone went, I covered the table in all these gorgeous little mini
Yeah, I
postcard
remember seeing
ads.
photos of it. And I was like, yo,
Yeah.
who put this
my
Lux
gosh.
event together?
It was so much work, but
That's
it
dope.
was so much fun. But I want to do
go.
more of them. I have another
Yeah.
dinner coming up with AP soon.
Oh, nice.
Which is really fun at the end of this month in San
Okay.
Francisco with
Yes.
just female collectors. So sorry,
Cool.
it's not
It's
everyone's
okay.
invited.
Sadly.
But I want to do more of them. I want to do more of them here. I want to do them more in like various different cities that we have this community in, because they're so fun to all get together and just celebrate our love for these wonderful things over food.
Yeah.
How do you find that brands are responding to your content?
I think well, for the most part. Yeah, I'd love to get involved with them more. I think it's really interesting to be able to tell their brand story in a way that they might not normally be able to connect with that specific audience. I think I have a unique approach when I talk to my audience. So I would love to work with brands more about sort of curating that voice and who is it that they want to target that they don't usually tap into. Like, can we, like Boucheron, for example, most beautiful pieces. I have a reflect that I got in a incredible estate sale for nothing with a full set of bracelet. It's just amazing. But I would love to be able to tell the story more to resonate with a younger audience that might want to start collecting that brand. So I think, well, for the most part, I've never had any negativity, but I would like to do more. That's more so. Yeah.
I was just thinking of this question while it was top of my mind, and I couldn't really think of any guests that we've had on our show to ask this question, because I think you're the perfect collector for this. Do you ever have any conviction in choosing which watch to wear for a specific event, right? Because
No, you absolutely do.
you want to wear something at a certain caliber, but at the same time, or you feel like you have to buy watches at a certain caliber. Can you kind of give your take as, you are an avid collector?
That's a really good question. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really hard. I went to a JLC masterclass recently in LA and I wore a 5513 Rolex Submariner. And I got some people being a little, I wouldn't say mean, but being like, why on earth are you wearing a Rolex to a JLC class? I don't have a JLC in my life. I need one so badly, but I only want these gorgeous vintage gold reversos on bracelet, which are very expensive and not something I can casually buy, but I need one in my collection. So I wanted to wear something that was on par, something that was like a respectable level that would be on a similar reverso sort of hype. But I worry a lot about that. I actually do worry about it, and I don't really want to worry about it, but I do. It's more the perception of, am I going to be validated as a collector if I go to one of these events and I'm wearing a fun swatch or something that makes me really happy or something that's very silly and has a good story, but are people not going to want to chat because I'm not wearing something that's going to legitimize me at this event? I think being a girl in this space, I often like to wear slightly heavier hitter pieces to be like, oh, she knows what she's talking about, and then to start the conversation versus, can I wear something that means a lot or has an incredible story, but because maybe I won't provoke that much conversation if I'm wearing something that's less of a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
So I think about it a lot.
You know, it's funny though, thinking of, because we've been through situations like that too. I always find that the person that says, you know, like, why are you wearing a 5513? Is typically the person that's mad that they don't have a 5513.
This is fair.
Yes.
It's like, and the brands are typically cool. When I go to events, I mean, I still do. I try to wear like the brand's watch, but I've learned over time they could care less. They don't care what's on your wrist.
No.
You know, they're just like, they want you there. There are other people that might feel away, but 9 out of 10 times, that dude was probably upset that you had it and he didn't. He was like, damn, that's in good condition too.
Probably.
That's
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably it.
you know, as a designer, obviously you have your take on, you know, what you enjoy aesthetically. And, you know, I'm sure that's based on not only what you design, but what you collect. But I'm curious, you know, in terms of design, is there anything in the modern world that you see right now that really is like impressive to you or seen recently? It's been a couple of new releases. Or is there anything that you would like to see that you're not seeing?
Not to speak about my love Cartier.
Sure.
But what they released in Watches and Wonders earlier this year were just fantastic. And I love their move back to small pieces again. I think we've gone bigger and bigger because the market has kind of moved that way in terms of buying. But I love that brands are now going to smaller again.
Yeah.
And I think they're tiny tanks and they're tiny, like a tiny golden panther, all diamond, is on my shopping list. It's so beautiful. But the fact that they've really done that amazing nod to vintage and amazing nod to really resurrecting these smaller styles that used to be in their repertoire. I think they do a really fantastic
I
job.
was really impressed by them reintroducing the monopusher. Like that to me, I was just like, man, I really want one of those. That piece is great.
It's such an amazing movement.
They really did an amazing job with that. And there's, again, to you know, you wearing that hat, a nod to F. Jean. He worked on that watch, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jean is doing some amazing things.
He's a
Oh
guy.
my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to their LA boutique reopening recently and it was an incredible spectacle. It
Yeah.
was so fantastic. There was foie gras and oysters being handed out and
Lux.
like typical Jean clubhouse
Sure, yeah,
vibes.
yeah.
But it was an amazing event. And it's on Sunset Boulevard. They normally have one tiny little storefront, but now they have these like a double store and it's just such a beautiful space. And I'm excited to see sort of what happens with that brand because I think it's just growing and growing and growing, and the demand for pieces are just
The demand
insane.
is out the roof
Yes.
right
Yeah.
now. I mean, we know a couple of people who were fortunate enough to get some of their first pieces in 2024. But I mean, obviously, we know even more people who are just waiting and chomping at the bit. Like,
I walked past, you know, the restaurant on Houston, Emilio Ballato.
Yes, yeah.
So I walked past this morning wearing this hat, and he was like, Jean, like pointing at me. And I was like, okay. And then he comes over and he's like, nice to meet you. I'm Emilio. I'm like, hi, I'm Georgia. I know who you are. And he said that he was like one of the first collectors in Jean. He bought it very, very early on. He now has a couple in his collection. He was wearing the most insane AP.
is this the father or the son?
the father?
Okay, I have a story about him.
Oh god! But it was it's amazing being able to wear this hat the last 2 days I've been in New York. I've been stopped twice and had such wonderful conversations with different watch people, regardless of like the piece I'm wearing. And it's just nice how it's sort of, if you know, you know.
Exactly, 100%.
But the nicest conversations. But
And
tell me the story.
I'm glad you met him because he's such a great guy.
Yeah.
He really is. And also, I'll indulge you real quick. I'll tell you the story. So we had a late night at what's that bar we used to go to?
Tom and Jerry?
Not Tom and Jerry.
Temple
At Temple
Oh my
Bar.
gosh, okay.
Bar.
And we were hungry. It's me and my friend on. We want to get something to eat. So I was like, oh, let's go to Emilio's. It's probably like around 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I think they close at like 11.
Yeah.
We get there, there's a line. So I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to make it in. So I see this guy, you know, they have like that railing right in front of the restaurant. So he's just hanging over there. So I see this guy, I walk over, and I'm like, how long's the wait? And he's like, you don't want to go in there. It's too long. It's too long. So I'm like, all right. And I look at his wrist. He's wearing a 5980 Patek Nautilus.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who he was. I'm thinking he's like a security guard at first. I'm like, nice watch. And he goes, will you like this?
Yeah.
What are you guys, a couple of watch guys?
And yeah.
I go, as a matter of fact, yeah. He's like, what are you wearing? I was wearing a 3800 two-tone Nautilus, vintage, 90s. And I think had on his gold Daytona.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, those are nice. Then he pulls out his phone. He starts showing us watches. He's like, I got this. I got this. So there's a whole line behind us, and we're just having this conversation with him. And then he looks at the line, and he looks inside. Get in there.
Yeah.
I love
So
that
wait,
so much.
hold on.
Oh, it gets better.
So we go inside, and he hints at one of the guys. He's like, next table, them. And I turned to him. I'm like, thank you. That was really kind of you. What was your name? He goes, Emilio. I'm just like, yo, you're so boss.
Yes.
I can't even
That's
thank you.
amazing.
Yes.
Yo, he's an awesome dude.
Oh
So
my
if you
gosh.
have, and the food is amazing.
Yeah.
If you ever can get in and dig in,
Yes.
incredible establishment. The food is off the chain. Family vibes. It's always a good time at Emilio's.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
He's a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
New York staple. You were going to say something. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I didn't want to cut you off, but I wanted to keep it on top of my mind. Talking about coastal cultures, right? You know how we met, right? We met at a watch dealer, and we just like hit it off. And I didn't know that you were that much into watches as much as you were. But in New York City, you can strike a conversation with someone and you don't know who you're speaking to. But, you know, from my experience on the West Coast, outside of watches, right? LA is kind of closed in.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has their own cliques, everyone has their own clubs. You're not able to really like kind of hit it off with someone randomly. Like New York City, you can go to the bar, you meet somebody, and you're like, oh man, this guy's cool. We'll strike a conversation and exchange numbers.
Yeah.
You meet somebody at a bar in LA, and it's like, this guy's weird.
It's true.
So I wanna check the temperature. I want you to, you know, give us a weather check on just like the temperature of the watch community on the West Coast versus like the East.
So I think your description of it was very apt, like very accurate.
Yes.
But I feel very lucky to have met so many nice watch people on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I've been honestly so grateful for it. Because once you're in, everyone is so nice.
Yes.
Like actually so nice.
Yes.
But it's really hard to get in.
Yes.
And I've been there for 3.5 years now. And I think the last year or so, I've really been welcomed. But even the last 6 months, everyone has been so nice and so welcoming. And I've been going to more events and I've been sort of meeting different people that know me because we've all got friends and friends. But it's very much, oh, you know this person? Cool, we can be friends.
Yes.
Versus talk to someone random on a
Yeah,
street.
it's almost like you have to be initiated.
100%.
in
It's
the
like,
West
can I have the
Coast.
intro with blah, 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 and then...
That's
then
so interesting.
yeah. It's a lot more formal,
Yeah,
which
that's funny.
is interesting, yeah.
We've got a third watch here.
Yes.
So obviously now we know you own more than one Rolex. Surprise, surprise. But you got a vintage two-tone
Yeah. 16233.
DateJust. This is as classic as it gets. This is Gordon Gekko. This is New York City.
Yeah.
This is for the person who is just venturing into vintage Rolexes. I think for most people, this is it.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
So you got this after the date. How did this come into your collection, and what was it about this piece where you were like, all right, we could toss that in there?
So first I got this one for an absolute steal. I bought it online on an auction and it just pressed a button and suddenly it was mine. And that was exciting.
Love it when that happens.
Yeah, so lucky. But I was looking for, again, a 91 16233 gem set. But I love the diamond markers on this because they're all round cut diamonds.
Yep.
Because on my date, it has baguettes on the 369 sort of instead. So it's different. But so my dad had one of these, not gem set, growing up. And he doesn't wear it anymore. I think he's lost it. He doesn't care about watches at all.
Yeah.
But this was a perfect everyday piece. And this to me is just such a fun sort of retro vibe with that two-tone and with that sort of the fluted bezel. It's
Very
just
80s.
It's like
Yeah.
fun.
It is.
Yeah.
But this was, to me, this is a more everyday piece than my gold President Day date.
Sure.
It's, yeah.
So my favorite thing about these pieces,
The jingle jangle.
I love
Are we
the
going to
old
ASMR?
bracelets,
Special
some
edition.
ASMR,
I know.
like
Yes.
Rolex, like there's just something about the vintage Jubilee bracelet when it stretches out just a little bit, not too much.
Yes.
It's a little loose.
Yeah.
It's a thing of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried this will fall off because the bracelet is well loved, but it's so difficult with yellow gold and steel because they sort of deteriorate at different paces because
Right.
of the softness of gold. It's really hard to have very good quality vintage Jubilee bracelets.
It's tough. I mean, there's a couple of people out there that I've seen have done a good job at restoring them. It can be very expensive.
No.
But luckily, you know, when you're in this world, like you can easily find new
Especially
old
for-
stock.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
You
this
know?
price point as well is such a good entry level price point with and without diamond. Diamonds doesn't even add that much more to the actual price because
Yeah.
they're less desirable. But this is such a good entry level Rolex for people wanting to start collecting.
I love the fact too that like as you collect Rolex, you're not collecting what people might think you would collect, right? These aren't like ladies' DateJust. You're collecting like what I mean, today a lot of guys aren't wearing the 36 millimeters. I still wear them. But this was like quintessential facts he does.
I know.
This is quintessential Rolex. This is like what was typically, they would, 20 years ago, oh, it's a man's watch.
Yes.
And I think that, the 36, even up to a 40, especially vintage 40s, look great on a
Yes,
woman's
I
wrist.
agree.
Yes.
A vintage 40 sub is perfect.
It's perfect.
It's so nice.
It's the proportions are amazing.
Yeah. Something that I always crack jokes about the this reference. This would be for, I mean, of course, like my wife, she's like a huge Sex and the City fan, right? So she watches it over and over and over, and all I see is watches on there. And like, this is like the big watch, like he wore 36 millimeter DateJust, all throughout most of the show. And I mean, he is a big guy, right? Like, so for anyone saying that they can't wear 36, I think they should probably put it on the wrist first, and then you can kind of like make that decision.
And there isn't much difference between a 36 and a 40, especially in vintage. I think with new Rolex, those cases are so much thicker. It kind of feels like a tank. Depending on which model it is, might not be so bad, but I don't know, vintage Rolex just has a special place in my heart.
Same.
I want to ask you, I think, for many of us, when we get into this hobby, some of us have mentors, others have people that we look up to. Was there anyone that you looked up to in terms of watch collecting, maybe that offered you some advice? What was the best piece of advice you received in watch collecting?
Okay, I'm not going to out him, but I have a watch guy.
Okay, cool.
He's become my absolute bestie.
That's awesome.
And he was, when I lived in San Francisco years ago, he was my roommate's boss at the time.
Okay.
And I said, I'm starting to think about watches. And she was like, I should just connect you with my boss. He's a watch guy. So in my phone, he was watch guy for the longest time. He would share tidbits. He would share information. He would share a lot. I think something that he taught me, which I do try and keep to, is buy the best version of the watch that you're looking for
Solid
or that you can
advice.
afford to buy.
Yeah.
Like cheap doesn't mean good. Cheap means something's wrong with it probably.
Yes.
Or it's going to take much more money to try and fix it service-wise. But buy the best version that you can afford to do of whatever vintage watch you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing advice he gave me.
That's solid advice. And we hear that more and more from, especially the seasoned dealers that we know. Rarity is cool, but prioritize condition.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it'll save you so much in the long run. And especially if you're buying vintage, how many of these are still in existence anyway?
Yeah.
Like to some degree, they're all pretty rare.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you can find something that's in really great condition,
Yeah.
you're doing all right.
Yeah.
You do a wrist roll and have an Ace Hood moment.
Oh,
bezel
no,
comes
the bezel
off.
falls off. Yeah, that's
That was
embarrassing.
a hip hop nod. I had to throw that one in there as pop culture nod. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, do some homework.
That's amazing.
Is there anything that has captured your attention? What do you have your eyes set on? Maybe the next addition to your collection?
There was one I was thinking about in the car on the way here.
Okay. Scrolling as we do.
I'd been thinking about it for a few days and I'm like, I kind of want to. I try and give myself a 3-week rule.
Okay.
because with clothing too, if I've
Sure.
been thinking about it for 3 weeks and I can't get it out of my head, I have to have it.
Right.
Whereas something's just, I see it, I need it, and I'll buy it, and then I'll regret buying it because these are expensive pieces regardless.
Yeah.
But it's a six, I don't know if it's another DateJust
Okay.
champagne dial, but ghost dial.
Okay.
And it's a Frankenstein, which I know is kind of a bit of a snobbery in the watch world that you shouldn't really be mixing parts. It's like numbers matching, but not. And it's a gold bezel, but with a all steel Jubilee bracelet.
Okay.
And then gold crown, champagne dial, but ghost dial.
That's so interesting. I personally think that if you are aware of it and you like it, I think it's fine. You know, we had shout out to Cameron Barr. We
Yes.
had him here a couple of days ago, and we were talking about Frank Mueller, and we got into a conversation about the DateJust that he modified that Jay-Z bought.
Yes.
And it's like, here's a watch everyone knows is a Frankenstein. It just happens to have provenance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. But at the same time, like, I think that there's room in your collection for classics, icons, and then obviously fun.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if I modified the Seiko, no one would trip.
Yeah.
No one would care.
I mean, it's a Rolex DateJust.
Yeah.
How many thousands
Yeah.
are, especially in like a two-tone, like, if you know and you want to mix it up,
Yeah.
I say go for it. I mean, we're dying to do like a stamped dial WCP, like something.
So
Yes.
I'm currently designing, sorry to steal your thunder slightly, but
That's
I'm
all good.
currently designing a custom watch, a custom Tudor with my company,
Oh, that's awesome.
which I work for
Wow.
Adobe, and
Yeah.
we have a watches channel on Slack.
Oh,
And
of
I'm
course
like
you do.
the unofficial chairwoman.
Yeah.
Of this channel. I've since adopted it.
Love it. Love it.
But we're currently in the process of designing a custom back
That's
gay,
awesome.
and I am so excited.
And I love that
it's-
Tudor
oh,
still does this.
I know. So I've learned so much about the whole process. It used to be 25 minimum, then it was 50, and now it's 40. But we keep on showing them our designs and our mock-ups, and it still has to be approved by Tudor. But
Yeah.
we're trying to maintain all the Tudor branding and the Tudor like back bay aesthetic, but also put the Adobe spin on it. And we're not slapping it with a logo. We're taking it a very Adobe way with like unique designs. But it's been really fun to design this. And I'm designing it with the head of like the director of UX design for the whole company. So the two of us are kind of off designing these little custom pieces.
I
and
can't wait to see this.
it's
love
so
that.
exciting. I'm so, it's
That's
been so
awesome.
fun. It's been really hard to sort of get everyone's views taken care of because there's about 100 and something people on this channel. They all have their own opinions and they all have their own input into this custom design. But
But it sounds like you've definitely like have planted the flag inside of Adobe as like, yeah, this is gonna be a thing.
Yes.
We're enabling everyone.
everyone. We're like, should we send it to our executive team yet for them to approve? Like, yeah, it's fun.
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited.
I mean, I think that kind of rounds us out. This, it's funny how much time flies here, but I really, really enjoyed our conversation. You're someone whom it's always a pleasure to run into you at an event, because when you go to these events, like you go through like kind of the emotions, like, okay, what am I going to wear? What watch am I going to wear? And then you're on the way and you're like, oh, do I even really want to go? But then when you get there and you see the people that you commune with, you see your people,
Yes.
it's like, okay, this is going to be a good night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
with
you're
you.
one of those people for us.
thank
When we
you.
see you, we know, okay, we're going to have fun. At least we got our people here with
Yeah.
us.
Yes,
You know what I'm
yes.
saying? So I want to say thank you for coming all the way out here and joining us on the couch.
Yes.
This has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to have you back on the show as a guest co-host, and we can have some fun talking about some brands and maybe being a little, critical.
Yes.
I'm so down.
Little-
So
they've
down,
earned that
yeah.
A
too.
little messy.
That'd be very
But this was a ton of fun. I think you're an amazing collector. I love your content. I love what you're doing in the space. And I think it is important. I think not only diversity amongst collectors, but when you meet collectors who also have a diverse approach to collecting, it makes the community that much richer. And the community is that much richer for having you. So thank you.
Thank you.
And please don't stop. Continue. This world needs you, right? And WCP needs you.
Yes, yes.
For those watching and listening, you guys know where to find us. wristcheckpod.com, Instagram @wristcheckpod. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio,
TikTok for the children.
TikTok for the children. And one day I know we may be
Maybe we're in the metaverse.
metaverse. Until then, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Deuces.
Peace.